Undercover boss orders. A puppy trim at his pet spa freezes. Hearing a worker falsely accused. What happens when a CEO books a grooming appointment at his own pet care center and uncovers the truth behind the smiles? Michael Grant, the founder and CEO of a small pet grooming chain with 11 locations, had built FurEver Clean from the ground up over the last decade. He prided himself on creating a space where animals were treated gently and staff were respected like family. But lately, something felt off. Complaints had been creeping in, pet parents upset about rough handling, uneven trims, and distant staff. Worse, turnover was climbing, and customer loyalty was slipping. Michael's regional managers insisted everything was under control, but the stories he'd been hearing didn't match the glowing reports on his desk. Frustrated and determined to get to the bottom of it, Michael decided to see it for himself. He chose the Maple Creek location, 2 hours away from his main office, just far enough that none of the staff would recognize him. Most of them had never met him in person. To blend in, Michael let his beard grow scruffy, traded his clean dress shirts for an old hoodie and jeans, and slipped on a pair of thick-rimmed glasses. He looked nothing like the polished executive featured in FurEver Clean's website banner. The bell above the glass door chimed softly as Michael stepped into the Maple Creek location. From the outside, the center looked like any other FurEver Clean branch. Blue awnings, paw print decals on the windows, the cheerful slogan still painted near the handle. Gentle hands? Happy pets? But inside, something was off. Subtle, but wrong. The kind of wrong that didn't scream, but whispered. The scent hit first, not just the usual mix of shampoo and wet fur. It was a heavier disinfectant that clung to the air, layered over something stale and metallic, like dried stress. A golden retriever in a crate near the front whimpered softly, his nose pressed to the metal bars. His fur was still damp, matted in uneven clumps along his flank. 2 cats sat in separate carriers stacked on a shelf, tails twitching anxiously. No one spoke to them. No one noticed them. The hum of clippers buzzed in the background, broken only by a bark, a sharp word, a door slammed harder than it needed to be. At the front counter, a young woman in a worn black apron struggled to work the payment system. Her hand trembled slightly as she counted change for a customer who looked annoyed at having to wait. Behind her, a man's voice barked from the grooming room. "Lana, you're falling behind again. This cut's sloppy. Are you even checking your work?" The words landed like stones in the space. Nobody reacted, but everyone heard it. Then she stepped into view. Lana. Mid-20s, tall, thin in that way, exhaustion tends to hollow people out. Her eyes flicked toward the front counter, but only for a moment. Her focus returned immediately to the Cocker Spaniel on the table, whose fur she was carefully combing out. Her movements were methodical, fast, efficient, but her shoulders were tight, her jaw clenched. She didn't respond to the voice. The man behind it entered next, Brent, mid-40s with the kind of authority that wasn't earned, just enforced. His apron was stained, his arms crossed over a chest that seemed always puffed out. He barely glanced at the dog before sneering. "You gonna take all day with that one, or are we planning to serve actual customers today?" Lana didn't look up. "Just finishing," she said quietly. There was no acknowledgement. Brent turned on his heel and stalked back into the staff area, the door swinging shut behind him. Michael didn't move. No one noticed him yet. He sat down on the small bench meant for waiting customers, pulled out his phone, not to scroll but to record. Not a video, just notes. He wrote fast. Smells, sound, staff reactions, every detail. A woman seated nearby leaned over slightly and whispered, "This place used to be great. My dog loved coming here. Now, he whines every time we pull into the lot." Michael just nodded, his eyes following Lana as she gently picked up the spaniel and carried him to a drying station. She spoke to the dog softly, barely audible, something reassuring, something kind. Another dog barked from the back. A sharp yelp followed. Pain, unmistakable. Michael's head turned slightly. So did Lana's. For a second, her mask cracked. Just for a second. Worry flickered in her eyes, followed by the practiced neutrality of someone used to swallowing things that weren't theirs to fix. The customers didn't seem to hear it, or they ignored it. But Lana didn't. Neither did Michael. At the front counter, a new customer entered. A middle-aged man with a Boston Terrier and a sharp tone. "Just a quick trim, nothing fancy. And don't let whoever messed him up last time touch him again." The girl at the desk flinched. Lana overheard but said nothing. Her hands moved faster. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Brent's voice boomed again. "Where's the towel bin? Why are we out of clean towels again?" No response. Then a pause. Then louder. "Lana!" She appeared again, hair now pulled tighter into a bun, a towel slung over one arm. Her eyes met Brent's just for a moment, and then dropped. "Back room's backed up," she said. "Washed everything I could." Brent muttered something under his breath. Michael couldn't catch the words, but he caught the intent. Resentment, contempt, power imbalance baked into every syllable. Lana turned and disappeared again into the workroom. Jaden entered the scene not long after. Younger than the rest, maybe 22, new. He held a pair of shears awkwardly and stayed quiet, eyes flicking nervously between Lana and Brent, trying to stay invisible. But it wasn't just the voices that painted the picture. It was the silence between them. Nobody smiled, nobody joked, nobody touched a dog like they loved it. The disconnect between the branding and the reality was painful. FurEver Clean was supposed to be different. That was the whole idea. That was the promise on every sign, every training manual, every onboarding pitch Michael had ever written himself. But here, at Maple Creek, that promise was wearing thin, frayed at the edges, quietly unraveling. And the worst part? No one from corporate had noticed. Or maybe they had, and chose not to care. Michael stood slowly, tucked the phone back into his pocket, and walked toward the back counter where the self-wash stations used to be. Half of them were empty, one was broken, an out-of-order sign scribbled on cardboard and duct taped to the hose. In the far corner, Lana kneeled beside a small dog, carefully trimming mats from behind its ears. She didn't see Michael. She didn't see anyone. But the way she held the dog, with patience, with presence, said more than any manager's report ever could. He didn't need more proof. But he would get it anyway, because the truth wasn't just whispered here. It was suffocating. The next morning, Maple Creek opened at 9 a.m. sharp. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed quietly. A playlist of soft instrumental music played on a loop. Meant to be calming, but in this place, it just echoed off the tiled walls like a cover-up. The first dog arrived at 9:07, a nervous beagle with thinning fur and cloudy eyes. Lana took him gently from his owner's arms, knelt to eye level and whispered something only the dog could hear. Her hands moved with precision. Her voice stayed low. The dog trembled, then slowly stilled. By 10:30, 4 more pets were waiting. By 11:15, the chaos had begun. Brent had shown up late, again. His voice arrived before he did, demanding to know where the towel delivery was, why appointments weren't being pushed faster, why everything felt behind schedule when it was barely past mid-morning. Lana didn't respond. She just moved faster. The dryers roared, the clippers buzzed, and still no one laughed. At 11:42, the incident happened. A young couple had dropped off a miniature schnauzer, newly adopted, anxious, and unsure. His name was Murphy. Lana had taken him in herself, no fuss, just a soft nod and a slip of a leash. Halfway through the grooming, as she moved to trim behind his ear, Murphy startled, jerked suddenly, and the safety tether slipped from the mount. He tumbled. It wasn't a long fall, just a quick thump to the rubber mat below, but the sound carried. The moment shattered the room. Lana dropped to her knees immediately. Her hands went to Murphy's side, checking, whispering, staying calm even as her own breath hitched in her chest. The dog whimpered once, then settled. The room fell still. And then Brent stormed in. "What the hell was that?" His voice cracked through the space like a slap. Jaden froze. The girl at the front flinched. Even the dogs fell silent. Brent's eyes locked on Lana. "Did you just let that dog fall?" He moved," Lana started. "That's not what I asked." Lana stood up slowly, shielding the dog with her body. "He's okay. I checked. He didn't hit anything hard. The tether slipped." "You're supposed to be trained. That shouldn't happen." His voice was louder now, on purpose, loud enough for the waiting customers to hear. "It was an accident." Brent stepped closer. "An accident that could have gotten us sued. Do you want to pay for that out of your paycheck?" Lana didn't answer. Her hands were still on Murphy. Jaden stepped forward. Just one step. His voice was barely a whisper. "It wasn't her fault. The hook's loose. I told you that yesterday." Brent turned like a loaded gun. "Did I ask you?" Jaden froze. Michael stood near the edge of the grooming room, invisible in the corner. He watched Brent's shoulders square, the way his words cut with intent, not just urgency. This wasn't leadership. This was theater. Performed dominance, built on fear. Lana picked up Murphy again, moving slowly, ignoring the weight of every eye on her back as she carried the dog to the quiet corner where she could check him more thoroughly. Her expression didn't shift, but her fingers shook as they touched the scissors. 10 minutes later, she was gone. Not left the building, just disappeared into the break room. Jaden noticed first, then Michael. He walked slowly toward the hallway, past the crates, past the noise, and stopped just before the closed door. From inside, barely audible, came a sound far too familiar. Someone crying, quiet, held in, the kind that didn't want to be heard but needed to be. No one went in. No one ever did. Brent didn't ask where she went. He didn't need to. To him, she wasn't missing. She was replaceable. Jaden passed by Michael again near the water station, still holding the same towel from earlier. His voice was barely louder than a breath. "She's been on her feet since 7:30. No break, no water, no one is helping. She's the only reason this place still works." Michael said nothing. Not yet. But inside, the decision had already taken root. This wasn't a training issue, or a staffing issue, or even a single manager gone bad. It was systemic. A rot that had been allowed to grow because nobody had stopped it. Because people like Brent survived in the silence between complaints. Because the people who did speak up, they left, or broke, or cried in the break room while everyone else kept trimming fur. Michael turned back toward the counter. Brent was laughing now, telling a story to a customer like nothing had happened. Lana came out a few minutes later. Eyes dry, shoulders stiff, smile fixed. She didn't say a word, just picked up her scissors and kept moving. And Brent? He didn't even look at her. That was the moment Michael knew. He'd come here to observe, but he was done watching. The next morning, the rain came early. Thin gray drizzle clung to the windows of Maple Creek like a veil. The kind of weather that quieted everything, that slowed people down but couldn't mute tension already humming beneath the surface. Inside, the grooming room was already in motion. Hair dryers roared, clippers buzzed, wet paws tapped the tiled floor. And Lana? She was already working before Brent arrived. Her apron was damp. Her eyes were heavier than yesterday. But her hands were steady. She didn't speak unless spoken to. Jaden passed behind her with a towel slung over one shoulder, offering a silent nod. She returned it. That was all. By 9:15 a.m., 3 dogs were lined up in crates, each waiting for their turn. A golden retriever with a nervous tick, a matted poodle, a pit bull with eyes that tracked everything. At 9:24, Brent arrived, coffee in hand, cell phone to his ear, still not 5 minutes in the building before complaints began spilling out of him like a habit. Where's the clipper oil? Who scheduled this many seniors back to back? Why are we always the ones cleaning up corporate's mess? No one answered. They'd learned by now. Brent didn't want answers. He wanted noise. Michael sat in the waiting area again. Same hoodie, same glasses, different posture. He wasn't slouched today. He was ready. At 10:02, the tension snapped. A woman at the counter raised her voice slightly, not angry, just confused. "I thought you offered breed standard cuts here," she said. "This doesn't look anything like what I showed your groomer." She was holding a schnauzer, neatly trimmed, but the eyebrows were uneven, barely noticeable to most, but not to her. The front desk staff stumbled over words, apologized, offered a free nail trim, tried to defuse. Brent came in hot. "You're right," he said, voice too loud again. "That shouldn't have happened. But you know, some of our staff still struggle with precision when it's busy." He turned, not toward the customer, but toward Lana. Lana had just stepped out of the wash station, towel in hand, wet dog at her side. She stopped mid-step. Brent didn't hesitate. She did the cut. She should have double-checked. The words weren't a guess. They were a knife. Lana's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. The dog squirmed in her arms. She adjusted her grip. The customer blinked, suddenly uncomfortable. "Oh, I didn't mean to." But Brent was already nodding, fueling the fire. "No, it's fine. It's a learning opportunity." Then he looked at Lana. "Right?" Silence. Everyone stopped. Even Jaden, standing near the dryer, held his breath. Michael stood up, slowly, quietly. He walked across the room, past the front counter, past the groomers, until he stood next to Brent. For a second, no one moved. Then he reached into the pocket of his hoodie, pulled out a slim leather wallet, and flipped it open. The gold-trimmed FurEver Clean executive badge caught the light. His voice was calm, low, but carried more weight than any shout ever could. "She's not the one who needs to learn something." Brent froze. The customer blinked in shock. Lana stared straight ahead, not at anyone, not even processing yet. Brent scoffed. "And who exactly are you supposed to be?" Michael didn't flinch. "I'm Michael Grant," he said. "I started this company 12 years ago." Silence dropped over the room like a thunderclap. No dryer, no bark, no door slam could compete with the weight of that name. Brent paled. His voice came back thin. I didn't realize." "No," Michael replied, still calm. "You didn't." He turned to the customer and nodded gently. "We'll fix your pup's trim, no charge, and thank you for your patience." Then his eyes locked on Brent again. "I've watched you blame your team 3 times in 2 days. I've watched you ignore safety issues, humiliate staff in front of clients, and treat living animals like products on an assembly line." Brent shifted uncomfortably, still trying to control the room. "It's a high-volume location. We're understaffed. That's not on me." Michael's voice hardened. "What is on you is creating a workplace where fear is normal, where people are scared to speak, where someone like Lana," he gestured, "who's held this place together day after day, is treated like she's disposable." Lana's eyes lifted. Brent tried one last push. "You don't understand the pressure we're under out here." "I understand it better than you think," Michael said. "And that's exactly why I'm here." Then simply, "You're done here." Brent stepped back, blinking. "What?" "You're no longer employed at FurEver Clean," Michael repeated. "Effective immediately." A pause, then quietly, "Collect your things. Leave now." Brent stood frozen for a long second, then left without another word. Michael didn't watch him go. He turned to the team instead, to the room, still stunned into silence. His voice softened, but it carried no less weight. "This ends now," he said. "This culture, this fear. It's not what I built, and it's not what we're going to allow, ever again." Then he looked at Lana. Her eyes were wide, disbelieving, but something was shifting behind them. Something long buried is starting to breathe again. Michael didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. She understood. Everything had changed. The following week began with silence, but not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of silence that fills a room when people are waiting for something to break. At Maple Creek, things were different now. The air felt lighter. Music played low, but steadily. Jaden smiled more. The front desk girl stopped flinching every time the phone rang. "And Lana?" Lana moved like she could finally breathe, but peace rarely comes without pushback, and Brent wasn't done. The letter came 3 days later. Legal stationery, sharp language, wrongful termination, defamation, emotional distress. He was suing, not just the company, Michael, by name. The allegations were clear that he was publicly humiliated, fired without due process, and now unable to find employment in his field due to reputation damage. It hit the team like a cold front. Whispers started. Corporate's legal department called. HR flagged policies. Suddenly, the story wasn't just inside the center anymore. Local pet owner groups were sharing screenshots of reviews. A few grooming forums picked up the drama, and then came the worst part. Lana was listed as a primary witness. Her name on the paperwork. It wasn't a surprise. Brent knew she had been central. He knew she had seen it all, but for her, it was a trigger. She didn't speak when she saw it. She just stared at the document for a long time, then placed it face down on the counter, walked out back, and sat alone behind the building near the dumpsters where no one could hear her breathe. Jaden found her an hour later, knees pulled up, hoodie over her head, silent. He didn't say anything, just sat beside her. Eventually, she spoke. "I've been through this before," she said. "Different manager, different place, but same story." Her voice was low, measured, practiced, like a scar rehearsing how it formed. "He messed up. Blamed me. I got called into HR. They asked why I didn't report it sooner, then told me it was too late. Said I could resign quietly or stay and go through the process." She laughed once, without humor. "I signed the resignation, just to be free." Jaden didn't speak. Lana looked at him. "I thought it was over. I thought this time was different." And that's when Michael stepped outside. He had been watching from the hallway window. Not eavesdropping, just present. Listening in the way leaders rarely do, when there's no speech to give, no response rehearsed. He approached quietly. Lana looked up, half apologetic. "I know I should stand up," she said. "But I'm not strong enough for a courtroom. I can't go through that again." Michael sat down beside them, knees creaking against the cold concrete. "You don't have to," he said. Her head tilted, confused. "I will," he continued. "I'll fight it. I'll take it all the way if I have to, but I won't let you get dragged through another fire you didn't start." She didn't respond right away, so he added softly, "No one should be brave alone." Later that day, Lana found a manila envelope on her workstation. Inside, a letter from corporate legal confirming that Michael had personally retained a private attorney at his own expense to represent her interests if the case went forward. A handwritten note was tucked beneath it. "You protected this place when no one else did. Now it's our turn." That night, Maple Creek didn't close at 6 o'clock. Staff stayed behind. They cleaned slowly, talked more than usual. Jaden played music off his phone, something upbeat and ridiculous. Lana laughed quietly, but fully. It had been a long time. By the end of the week, the pressure started to shift. Brent's legal team tried to push back, but inconsistencies emerged. Testimonies didn't align. Former employees came forward. A paper trail surfaced showing multiple internal complaints that had been misplaced or ignored under Brent's management. Michael didn't gloat. He just showed up. Every day, sat with the team, asked about their weekends, helped towel off dogs. No grand speeches, no corporate spin, just presence. And that, more than any press release, made people believe again. Lana still hadn't decided if she would testify, but she walked taller. She didn't whisper in meetings, and when a new hire asked her how long she'd been here, she said, "Long enough to know what right looks like." For the first time in months, she believed she wasn't alone. That mattered more than any title. And as the lawsuit started to unravel, so did the fear. The lawsuit dissolved faster than expected. In the end, it wasn't even dramatic. Just a string of formal withdrawals, quiet calls between lawyers, and a final email from Brent's side stating the case was no longer being pursued. No apology, no explanation, just disappearance. But for Lana, it was more than a legal win. It was survival. And for Michael, it was a moment to rebuild. 2 days after the case closed, he called her into the office, one of the few rooms at Maple Creek that hadn't been used in weeks. The blinds were open. Afternoon sun poured across the desk. There was no paperwork, no clipboard, just 2 chairs. And time. Lana stepped inside, still in her grooming apron, fingers dusted with stray fur. She sat quietly, not guarded but unsure. Michael didn't waste time. "I want to offer you a promotion," he said. "Regional lead, North District, 5 locations. You'd oversee hiring, training, operations, policy enforcement, everything you've already been doing here, just on a larger scale. Salary reflects the role." He paused, watched her. Lana didn't react right away. She blinked once, twice, then leaned back in the chair. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just weighty. After a moment, she asked, "Why me?" "Because you stayed," he said. "Because you carried this place when no one else would. Because people trust you. Not just the team, but customers too. Even the animals know it. That's rare." Lana looked down at her hands. One nail chipped. A faint red scratch along her wrist from a nervous cat earlier that morning. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's a big job." Michael nodded. "It is." She looked out the window. Kids passed on the sidewalk outside, dragging leashes behind them, dogs bounding ahead. Life is moving forward. Then she shook her head. "Thank you," she said. "But no." Michael didn't flinch. He just waited. "I thought about it," Lana continued. "Even dreamed of something like this once. But I don't want to manage 5 locations. I want to stay here." Michael frowned gently. "Why?" She turned toward him fully now. "Because this is where I was broken, and this is where I started to put myself back together. I know every sound this place makes. I know which dogs come in shaking and which leave wagging. I know when Jaden's too quiet and when the dryers are too loud for the puppies in the back." Her voice stayed calm, but steady. "If I leave now, it feels like I'm climbing out and leaving everyone else at the bottom." She didn't say it with bitterness. It was just the truth. Michael leaned back in his chair, exhaled slowly. Most people said yes to promotions out of instinct, but this was different. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded. "I want to stay. Train the new ones. Make sure they don't go through what I did. Make sure this place becomes what you meant it to be when you started." Michael studied her for a long moment, then reached into the drawer beside him. He pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a silver pin, simple but weighty, shaped like a paw print. The center is engraved with 3 words, "Hold the standard." He stood, walked around the desk, placed it gently in her palm. "This isn't a title," he said. "It's a reminder." Lana looked down at it, then up at him. "You earned this," he added. Not because you said yes, but because you said no to the wrong things at the hardest times. She closed her fingers around the pin, then nodded. That evening, she didn't go home right after closing. She stayed to help Jaden sanitize the crates, made jokes about his playlist, gave a new staffer tips on calming anxious dogs. She wiped down every surface like it was sacred, and before she left, she walked into the office one more time, pushed the pin into the bulletin board above the schedule, not to show off, just to remind the team, someone's watching now, not from above, from beside them, where it counts. Things didn't change overnight. The light didn't suddenly feel warmer. The air didn't immediately fill with laughter, and not every dog stopped shaking when they came through the door. But something had shifted. The heaviness that used to live in the corners of Maple Creek, between the crates, under the dryers, inside the silence between co-workers, was beginning to lift. Michael started showing up earlier. No longer in disguise, no hoodie, no distance. He didn't take over. He listened. He stood beside the bath stations during rush hours, held the door when deliveries came in, rolled up his sleeves when the washer overflowed again for the third time in a week. He didn't walk around like a CEO. He walked like someone who remembered why he built the company in the first place. Jaden noticed first, then the rest of the team followed. There were no more shouting matches, no more blame tossed like wet towels, no more hiding in the break room to cry alone. Instead, there were small things, the kinds of things that only happen when people feel safe. Someone brought in muffins on a Wednesday. A new hire asked for help out loud. A dog with a known bite history licked Lana's hand after his groom. They started taking breaks, real ones, 15 minutes where no one called their name, where they could sip water without guilt, breathe without checking the clock. Michael met with each team member one by one, not evaluations, conversations. What's working? What's not? Where are we failing you? He didn't write it all down. He remembered. Within 2 weeks, new clippers arrived. Mats were replaced. A second washer was installed. Air purifiers added. Equipment updated, not because someone complained, but because they finally felt heard. Hiring ramped up. Not rushed, not desperate. Thoughtful. People came in because they'd heard. Maple Creek was different now, because Lana was training again, not barking orders, not checking boxes, teaching. She showed new staff how to read a dog's body language before they ever picked up a pair of scissors, how to speak to animals like they were people, how to speak to people like they weren't just part of a system. She didn't use manuals, she used moments. Jaden, once the shyest voice in the room, now coordinated grooming schedules, trained on inventory systems, helped organize the new break room supplies, snacks, pet-safe aromatherapy, and better lighting. At one point, a staff member from another location visited. She watched for an hour, quietly, then pulled Michael aside. "Whatever you're doing here," she said, "our branch needs it." He nodded, but he didn't say what he was doing, because it wasn't a what, it was a who. Michael had stepped in when it mattered, but it was Lana who rebuilt the foundation. She didn't need authority to lead, she had trust, and that, more than title or salary or recognition, was what the team followed. They trusted her to speak when others stayed silent, to stay when others left, to protect what couldn't protect itself. By the end of the month, the numbers started changing too. Customer return rates rose, reviews turned personal, naming staff by name. Dogs are left calmer. Owners stayed longer to chat. But more than that, the team started to laugh again. That was the real win. Not profits, not PR presence. And on a slow Thursday afternoon, between appointments, Lana stood near the window watching a young girl struggle with her new puppy at the door. She stepped forward, opened it for her, and crouched low to meet the bouncing mess of fur that practically tripped inside. "You're okay?" she whispered, smoothing the fur between its eyes. "You're safe now?" Michael stood across the room. Didn't speak, didn't interrupt. He just watched and smiled. Because Maple Creek wasn't just recovering, It was remembering who it was and who it was meant to be. It was a Friday, late afternoon. Golden light spilled across the grooming room floor like it had nowhere else to be. The hum of the dryers was softer now, like background music instead of noise. The last appointment had just left. A shaggy terrier named Louie, ears too big for his body, tail wagging like it was the first day of spring. He stopped at the door, turned back toward Lana, and barked once, short, high-pitched, grateful. Lana waved. Jaden flipped the sign on the front door from open to closed. A soft click echoed through the room. No rush, no tension. Just a stillness that felt earned. Michael stood at the edge of the counter, a clipboard in hand, though he wasn't looking at it. He was watching the team, moving together without chaos, talking without whispering, smiling without checking if it was safe to. Lana was wiping down the grooming table, her movements slow, precise. She didn't rush anymore. She didn't shrink anymore. She stayed. After everything. After Brent. After the lawsuit. After the Title E she turned down. She stayed, and in doing so, helped others stay too. Michael walked over. He wasn't wearing his CEO badge today. Didn't need it. "Looks like a good week," he said. Lana nodded, still focused on the table. "Quiet one," she replied. "In a good way." Jaden chimed in from the back. "We hit a new record in return clients, and nobody cried in the break room." He grinned. "Except maybe me. When I saw someone finally replace the mop." The team laughed. For real. Michael let the moment sit, then looked at Lana again. "I'll be heading out," he said. She stopped wiping, met his gaze. "Just for a few days," he added. "Other locations to visit, but I'll be back." Lana nodded. "We'll keep things steady." He knew she would, but before he turned to go, something made him pause. He walked over to the far corner where the staff bulletin board hung, half covered in reminders and holiday shift swaps. Pinned near the center, still gleaming under the overhead lights, was the Hold the Standard pin, right where Lana had placed it. He touched it gently, not to move it, just to remember. "Have you ever thought about changing the slogan?" Lana asked from behind him. Michael turned. She wasn't teasing, just curious. "Gentle hands, happy pets," she repeated. "It's sweet, but maybe not the full story anymore." He tilted his head. "What would you suggest?" Lana thought for a moment, then smiled. "Gentle people, strong teams." Michael smiled back. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe we just let this place do the talking." He picked up his coat, gave Jaden a quick wave, then stepped outside. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. A kid passed by on a scooter. A woman with a cat carrier paused at the window, peeking inside, and from the other side of the glass, Lana waved. Behind her, a puppy wiggled in a crate, tail tapping against the plastic like a quiet drumbeat. Another dog snoozed nearby, belly up, safe, calm, loved. Maple Creek had changed, but not into something new, into something true. What FurEver Clean was always supposed to be. Not a chain, not a brand, but a promise. That no matter how messy the world outside became, inside these walls, care would come first. Not just for pets, but for people too. Michael looked back one last time before getting in his car and smiled. Not because things were perfect, but because someone had stayed to make them better. Sometimes, the loudest voice in a company isn't the one shouting orders. It's the quiet one who keeps showing up. Who holds things together when no one's looking. Who stays kind, even when the system forgets to be. This story wasn't about saving a business. It was about remembering why it was built in the first place. Behind every job title is a person. Behind every mistake is a chance to lead with empathy. And behind every broken system is someone brave enough to fix it, one choice at a time. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you of someone who's held the weight without ever asking for credit, then this channel is for you. We tell stories like this every week. Stories of quiet courage, of leadership done right, of justice that doesn't scream, but delivers. Subscribe if you believe workplaces can be better. Share if you know someone who is a Lana, someone who shows up, stands tall, and makes things better just by being there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next story.